Hi, so I'm digging into the Crafter's Companion flower forming kit, and I thought I would sit down and just make a bunch of the flowers, and then I'll have them already made up for when I go to make my cards. And so you can see here I've already started in on this, and I wanted to try it out before I actually shot a little tutorial on it because this is a first for me. I've never done foam flowers before, and I've always heard about the foamiran but never used it before. So I was really excited about this kit for that reason. I've done some 3D paper flower shaping and really immensely enjoy that, especially adding those to my mini album covers. Love it. So I knew that I would really enjoy this, and I definitely have. So let me show you where we're headed and what the finished flower looks like. So this is the yellow one. The kit does come with these different colored foam sheets, and this one is a light blue, and what I did was I inked it in the center, whereas the yellow I inked the edges of the petals. So you can ink it either way and get really pretty looks and just, different. Look at that one. So pretty. So I've made in each color. All I did was I stacked all the sheets of foam. Besides the colors that you see here, they also include a sheet of white and a sheet of green, and there is 1 leaf die and 4 petal dies. So I stacked these sheets up, these 4 sheets up, and then I used these flower petal dies. There are 4 of them, 4 different sizes, and I didn't use the smallest one that much, but I'll tell you the recipe in a second when I go to make this final one. But the dies easily cut through 3-4 layers of this foam because it's really thick foam. Or thin foam, sorry. It's very thin foam. It's not like your fun foam or like the foam sheets that I use for my shaker cards and things like that. So, and then I guess maybe there's also like a special property where it shrinks a little bit and sort of curls up a little bit when heat is applied to it. So that's how you kind of get this this sort of effect. I wanted to show just as a comparison what it looks like when you use the same dies and you just use cardstock instead of the foam, and you can see the difference that it makes. This looks so much more realistic, and the dies, these particular dies anyhow, do cut a very straight curved petal. There are definitely flower forming dies out there that have a more distressed edge, which gives you a slightly more realistic look. And sorry, my fingers are all inky because I did ink all of the edges on these flowers. But that's just to give you an idea of where we're headed. So I'll set these aside and show you how I made them. So to start, I just left myself a couple here to do on camera. So after die cutting, it looks like this. I saved the 2 largest petals just so that it's easier to see what I'm doing here. And all I did was I'm using some distress ink. In this case, for these purple flowers, I'm using Seedless Preserve. You could probably use any sort of ink you like. And I'm just going to ink the edges. So you can see the larger one here has no ink on it, and then after inking it looks like this. So I'm only inking, and I'm not trying to get like a super precise, exact blend. I'm just gonna go around the edges, just avoiding the center basically, so that I get some nice color variation. And you can build it up. I find these small daubers really convenient because you can really, especially for the smaller petals, it's a little easier to apply. And you can build this up as much as you like, but keep in mind that once the heat is applied to this, because it will shrink the foam, that color, when it shrinks, is going to get more intense. So, and then because we're going to scrunch it up and distress it some more, even if you have like a harsh line of ink, don't sweat it. You can really be very kind of freeform and messy with this. You just want some color, and that just makes it look a little bit more realistic, have a little bit extra dimension. And I'm gonna just spritz with water so that I can clean this. And I'm working on, this is a silicone mat, the blue mat here, and then this is a heat resistant craft mat, and then I've got a glass little plate here, and then this is my iron, which is heating up. It's getting nice and toasty there. I have it set to silk, which is about the halfway mark on my iron, and this is just a regular home iron. This iron does have steam functionality, but I don't have any water, and I'm not using the steam at all. And this iron actually just sits in my craft room because I don't iron my clothes. So I use it more for crafting than for anything else. So I have a set of really just very inexpensive ball stylus tools, and this actually came, these 4 plus another 5. And technically these are clay molding or carving tools. So I know sometimes the same tools will be used in different industries and just named differently, and by nature of giving it a different name, sometimes it demands, I guess, or you can charge a different price for it. So look for if flower stylus tools are more expensive, try looking for clay ball stylus tools, because I think they're pretty much the exact same thing. It's just maybe the crafting industry kind of commands a higher price tag, but at the end of the day, it's the same product. And if not the exact same product, it'll achieve the same results. So then all I'm gonna do is, my iron is warm, and I do actually prefer to work with my iron where I can look at it from the side. This isn't just for video purposes so that you can see what I'm doing. It's also so that I can like see exactly where the iron is. If it was directly in front of me, I might, kind of depth perception, might not realize how close I'm getting to the iron. But when I look at it from a profile view, I can see exactly how close I am to the iron, and can avoid getting burned. So you put this on your iron, and it's going to shrink, it's going to curl up a little, and then when you feel like it's looking pretty good, just let it drop, and then I fold it in half, fold these over, and then fold this over. So you basically want to stack all of the petals, and then give it a good squish. And if you're doing a lot of these like I was, you might get some kind of I don't know, friction burns maybe. So you can do this. So if you want to roll it on the silicone mat, because the silicone mat is a little grippy, it's not going to slide, it will actually roll. And then you can use different fingers and do it that way. So what I'm doing is I'm just rolling and squishing up the ends of my petals. So I'll do that a couple more times because we have a few leaves here, so do the smaller one. So the foam is touching directly on the iron, just using the ball stylus so that I can hold it on there so that everything gets some heat. and I'm letting it drop. With smaller petals, it seems having a lower heat setting on your iron works just fine. And then I found that the larger petals, sometimes I had to crank the heat up a little bit. So I'm on the silk setting now, and if it's too low, nothing's gonna happen with the foam. It's just not gonna be hot enough to react, and it's not that it'll just take longer. You just need a certain degree of heat to get it to move and react. So I'm gonna just punch that up a little bit and then get this last one. And you'll know because you'll put it to the iron and nothing will happen, because you should be able to visibly see it shrinking up, bubbling up, and then when you drop it, it should just curl. And it won't be super hot to the touch also. So don't feel like you're gonna burn yourself when you go to grab the foam. So just gonna turn my iron off. And you don't have to be super fast to get these all squished, because the friction of moving it around in your hands, that will generate some additional heat. And what I found is with the larger ones, if folding all 6 petals up is just too much to really squish around, you can take it 2 by 2. So just, fold 2 together and then, just roll them, squish those 2 together, and then move on to the next set of 2. So you can do that also. And a little bit of extra. So the recipe, I like to consider these recipes whenever I do my flower shaping. The recipe that I like to use is for the larger this size flower. I like to use 2 of the largest, and then 2 of the second largest, and then 1 of the third largest, for a total of 5. And then after you have squished all of these up, so you can go ahead and just squish everything, get it to this point, and then you can move on to the next step. So leaving it like this is just fine. It'll hold its shape and it won't impede the next step. You don't have to do the next step right away. So if you're making these en masse, you can get them all to this point and then move forward. You do want to do the iron and the heating. You do want to do all of this twisting right after it comes off the iron. You don't want to bulk heat up a bunch of different petals and then try to do the twisting, because it'll be a little bit more effective when it's warm. So you can even see with this one, because I took a little bit longer and I was doing them individually, it's not quite as crinkly as that one, which I did like straight off the iron. And like I can go back in and try to add some more, but there's only so much you can add to it once the foam has cooled. And I haven't tried necessarily taking it back to the iron and getting more heat on it, but regardless of how it turns out, you can make it work. I mean, flowers are unique by nature, and so you don't have to strive to get them all exactly the same. Okay, so then once we're at this point, what you want to do is grab a ball stylus that is feels like a little bit bigger than you think you would need, and then you want to kind of towards the bottom of each petal put the ball stylus on the inside of the flower, and then just gently kind of wrap the petal around it so that you add a little bit of curvature, you flatten that out a little bit, and you get this petal to curve in. You don't want to straighten out too much of the tip of the petal because that's why we did all that twisting, is to get that wrinkly, very natural edge. But we want the petal towards the center to be a little bit larger, be a little bit smoother. And so that's why having this ball stylus is helpful, because then you can just kind of smooth it out right over the top of the ball stylus. So there's that one. That was the largest. So this die cut results in that after the heating, the twisting, and then the shaping of the petal. So and this is before curving the petal around the ball stylus. That's the after. So you can see it looks really pretty, and you have all those veining and the wrinkles in the petals. Really super pretty. So I'll do that again. Just take this large ball stylus, wrap from the inside of the petal, just wrap that bottom portion around. And you can, if you rub it a little, again, that's going to create a little bit of friction, a little bit of heat, and that might make the foam kind of move a little bit more easily. And I've, torn my foam accidentally too, and I didn't really care. I still used it. So that happens in nature too. It's not a big deal. And plus these are getting stacked, so I just sandwiched that particular die cut in between two other ones, so you wouldn't even know it's in here. The one that ripped, and there's no way you can tell. So there's that. Then we have one more. So this is the next size down. This is that size die. So I'm gonna just use a smaller ball stylus because this is a smaller petal. Maybe even smaller than that. Okay. There we go. Yeah, this foam technique is so different from paper, making paper flowers. It takes just as many, actually, I think fewer die cuts. I usually use 6 when I'm making my paper flowers, but it's so effective how realistic this looks. It's a few more steps, but they both start off the same with kind of inking the edges of the petals, and that's about all that's really similar between the two methods. So here's that petal. Now that we have these, so as I mentioned, my recipe is 2 in this size, 2 in this size, and 1 in the third largest. That's for the larger of the 2 flowers. For the smaller of the 2, what I used was 1 in the second largest, and then 3 in the third largest. So 1 of these and then 3 of these makes the smaller one. So that's a total of 4 die cuts. For the larger one, 2 of the largest, 2 of the second, and then 1 of the third largest. And then there is a 4th die, this small one here. That one, what I did was I made these like little bitty flowers, just 1 layer, and I just took a flat back pearl from the kit and popped that in the center. So so I might make kind of a few of these just as extra little embellishments. And because these small ones, I think they're gonna be really hard to kind of twist up and then to wrap around. I found even this size was kind of hard to wrap it around the ball stylus to get this bottom portion to be kind of straight. So, and I have, you know, ball stylus in all sizes, even like down to the smallest, and it was kind of tough. I can't imagine having to do that for this size. Okay, so then what I do next is I look at all my petals, and the one that's the most open, I put bottommost, because generally as it's coming more towards the top or more towards the center, I like for the petals to be a little bit more closed. So this one looks to be the most naturally open to me, and so I'm gonna put this petal on the bottom, and you can use a hot glue gun. I'm gonna use my Beacon 3-in-1, so it will take a little bit longer to dry, but then I won't have any risk of burning myself. So it doesn't take a lot of glue, just put a little, I have a little hole in my bottle, so that makes it hard. Okay, so just put a small little dab right in the center, and then I'm gonna stack the next flower up on top of it. And you just want to stagger your petals so that they aren't sitting one directly on top of the other. So you want your petals to be between each other, not on top of each other. That makes the flower feel a little bit more full, look a little bit more natural. Just keep adding little dabs of glue. You don't really need a lot. Again, just looking between these two, which one's more open, which one's more closed, and I want to take the one that's more open, put that down, and you can use a ball stylus to push down in the center and really make sure that that adhesive is making good contact. There's probably a lot of different ways of doing this. I watched a couple of videos, including the Crafter's Companion videos that Sarah does and Craig, but I actually kind of prefer this method because I think when they stack it, well, I don't know if Craig does this. I think Sarah just takes a pokey tool and pokes through all the different layers and threads her stamens through, and I kind of like having the glue in between each layer, and I feel like that makes the center really stable so that when you do stick your stamens through, it's a little bit more solid because it's not just the thin foam that you're sticking it through, which could tear, but there's also layers and layers of glue. That's the other reason why I like using the Beacon 3-in-1, because it's not 100% dry yet, and so I can still poke something through that with relative ease. And once the stamens are poked through, there will still be some glue in there, and that'll also help hold everything in place. Okay, so now that I've got all my layers are stacked, and you can see how I wasn't precise with my inking, and it all looks great. There's some nice variation in colors, but it's all smoothed out. It all looks really good, and no, like harsh lines or anything, and so that looks fantastic. And then I am gonna use a pokey tool, and I'm gonna just pierce a hole in the center straight down. I'm gonna go all the way through the bottom, but I'm being kind of gentle. I don't want to be super rough at this point because we're almost at the finish line. These little wires are what the stamens are wrapped with. So in the kit you get this packet of stamens, and they come in these little bundles. I think there's like 4 or 5 different colors, and then each little bundle is wrapped in this really thin wire. And so what I do is I just take this wire, fold it in half from the bottom. I poke it through that hole that I just made with my pokey tool. And now I've got this little loop here. Then I open that up a little bit. And then, no, this is kind of hard to see, but so I've got my wire, and so that's there. And then all I'm gonna do is, for these first ones, I only put, for the larger flowers, I think 4 stamens, and it feels kind of sparse. So for this one, I'm gonna go with 6 just to see how it looks with something that's a little bit more full. So then through my little wire there, I fed the stamens through, and then I'm gonna fold that in half. I'm still holding onto the wire from the bottom. I'm gonna fold this in half. It doesn't have to be perfect at this point. I'm gonna pinch the wire close, pinch the stamens, just to make it a little bit smaller so that when it goes through the foam flower petals, it's not gonna make a huge hole, nothing bigger than it needs to be. So I'm gonna hold my stamens, and then I'm just gonna hold from the bottom to stabilize it, and then I'm gonna pull this wire. And this was one of the reasons why I went with fewer stamens to start, because I was a little worried about getting a lot of layers of, maybe I'll take one out because I'm having a hard time pulling it through the hole. So instead of 6, we'll do 5 and see how that looks. Okay, managed to get one stamen out. Try that again. This wire is really nice because it's just so thin, so I don't have to worry about making a ginormous hole. I do find that the with this die, the center portion of the petals it's not a large area in the middle there, so that's why I'm trying to be a little bit gentle so that I don't, especially on the smaller petals, so that I don't tear right through. So now that I was able to pull all of my stamens through, I'm just gonna pull this wire out, and I'll slip a pair of scissors through here, and remember these stamens are folded in half. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna snip it. I think I got all but one, and you can just snip it across the top too if that's easier than trying to get it through the loop. But this way, once you've snipped that, now you can pull these individually. So I can now kind of futz around with this, and if that one is looking a little too tall, find which one it is from the bottom, and then just pull it down. So by snipping it like that, you can now individually kind of get all of the stamens to whatever height that you prefer. And then if it's easier on your fingers, you can use just like a pair of tweezers also to just grab and pull. And I think I like the look of them a little bit kind of closer to the bottom. I know some flowers, there are some flowers where the stamen sticks up quite a bit. And if you don't know which one's which, you can always kind of pull it from the top and see what moves from the bottom to identify which one you need to pull on. So, but I ultimately just pull on like pretty much all of them and get them to go down almost as pretty much as far as they are able to. So, I mean, you can kind of sit here and adjust it for a while, but I think it's kind of it's very zen-like working on this. You can, it's almost like, I kind of feel like it's similar to people who prune their bonsai trees. It's just very relaxing for me. So I kind of like taking my time and trying to get it just so. And I have this one last one. Okay. And I did kind of smoosh my petals quite a bit in the course of doing that, but see, you can just fluff it up again and it still looks gorgeous. And you can even at this point just kind of roll the petals between your fingers, and you can kind of roll them backwards a little bit if you want. Give them a little extra curl if you want them to curl downwards. You can give it still, even attached like this, you can still give each of these petals a little bit of a twist if you wanted to add back in some of the kind of some of that wrinkliness, because I was kind of holding and pushing it kind of flat as I was working on the stamens, but you can add a lot of that texture back in, curl it down, twist it some more, whatever you like as kind of final adjustments. These are this foam is really super resilient, and I did manage to tear one earlier, but it wasn't too bad. Okay, so then now that I have the stamens where I want them, I'm going to put a big glob of glue and again I'm like smushing my flower. Don't worry, you can always like kind of fluff it up, and that's what I like about it. It's very resilient. You can always just kind of give it a little fluff and extra little curls, but so I'm gonna let that little blob of glue dry, and then these have already dried, mostly dried. So all I did was, you can see with this yellow one, all I did was just snip that off. So and then it should sit a little bit flatter to the card. And this one, I don't think that one has glue yet. This one. And you can definitely use a hot glue gun. You would have to work a little bit faster with a hot glue gun, but there you have it. So got some really pretty colors in this kit. I see this a lot, like the aqua markers had these 3 colors, a yellow, a pink, and a blue. The sparkle ink kit also had sparkle inks in yellow, pink, and blue. So it's a recurring color scheme. It's really pretty. And then, and when you get that in media supplies like inks and whatnot, you can always mix, I mean, those are your primary colors, so you can always mix them to create all of your secondary colors. So it's a nice set of colors to have, but it's just funny how like it's definitely a recurring theme, and in similar shades too. Although this pink, I'll show you for comparison how different the inking the edges, the difference that it makes to the color of the foam. So I'm gonna set that there to dry. Alright, so let me show you. Excuse my puppy. So here's the yellow foam, and then with inked edges. See how different that looks. This is the pink. This probably has the most dramatic. And for the pink, I used picked raspberry. And that's just, you know, inking the edges just like I showed you earlier. For the blue, I inked the inside as opposed to the outer petals, and I used peacock feathers. And let me show you the yellow again, because I didn't show you the ink. I used mustard seed on that one. And then with the purple, I used seedless preserve. So you can see what a difference it makes. And this is why you really only have to ink the edges, because as it shrinks, that center portion is almost not visible at all, really. And everything is just stacked up, so you hardly see the center either. So you could, if you wanted to maintain a little bit more of this color, ink a little bit less of it, so just the very tippity tips of the petals. But I kind of like giving it a little bit more of an all over. There's still some color variations, but especially in this pink one. But for the most part, it's really, you get a nice smooth transition. So really pretty. And just to show you, this is how much is left of the 8x8. So I'll fold it in half so you can kind of see. I haven't even used half of one sheet. And that was to make 2 flowers. So you only get the one 8x8 sheet for each color. So about half the sheet of the yellow got me one big flower, a small flower, and then these two itty bitty flowers. So that's about half the sheet right there. So it does, you know, you do go through the foam pretty quickly, and but then, you know, I don't think I'm gonna have a lot of these on a single card. I think each card might have, you know, 1, 2, and then maybe some of the smaller ones. So I think this will still go a long ways, but I know I'll probably use this up pretty quickly though, especially for my mini albums. For my mini albums, I'll often put on the cover like 3 to 5 flowers. So it really just depends on your project, but I'm gonna definitely be on the lookout for where to buy more foam. And probably the most useful color to get, I would think, is white, because then you can hopefully buy it in a larger quantity and then just color it to whatever color you want. Although it is rather convenient to have it already, you know, have a base of a color, and then you just really need to ink a little bit here and there, and that just gives it some extra interest. So I don't know. I can go either way on that, but I'll definitely be shopping around. If you know of resources for where to get more foam, definitely let me know because I'm gonna be shopping for it very soon here. All right. So next steps will be to actually create some cards.